Good afternoon. It's Friday, the 2nd of November 2018, just after 1 o'clock. Welcome to UK Column News. I'm your host, Mike Robinson. Joining me in the studio today is David Scott from Northern Exposure. Welcome to the programme, David.
It's great to be here, and what a view.
Yes, lovely view. But unfortunately, the first graphic is not such a lovely view because here is Sarah Thornton, and of course, in the last couple of days, the National Police Chiefs Council and the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners were holding their partnership summit because, as we know, everything is about partnership. Well, she was saying some things that did get some media coverage, that incidents of misogyny, claims against dead people should not be pursued. So this is about police priorities and the amount of money that the police have to spend on various things, and of course the rise, or at least the alleged rise, of violent crime in the country. Let's see what she actually said. Here we go. Neither investigating gender-based hate crime or investigating allegations against those who have died are necessarily bad things. I just argue that they cannot be priorities for a service that is overstretched. Well, this is all pretty hypocritical, David, because why would we not want to investigate people that have been abusing children, even in the past?
You have an institutionalised abuse network. You have people right up to the former Prime Minister who have been abusing children on an industrial scale. You have the cover-up of that industrial scale of abuse being perpetrated through the police, through the courts, through the entire system. But we don't want to know, Mike. We don't want to know because the people are dead and it's time to move on, and we need to be looking at far more important things. And it's just the same as looking at hate incidents and basically gossip on social media. It's the same sort of level. We're going to equate these two things so that people get the idea that investigating the core breakdown of our society is not really that important and should not be a priority for the police.
Well, let's just remind everybody, of course, that Sarah Thornton does have form here. Because, of course, one of the subjects that we were trying to cover for quite a number of years was the abuse that was taking place at Oxford and Cherwell Valley College. And Sarah Thornton was Chief Constable at Thames Valley Police, therefore responsible for any investigation or not into the abuse that took place at that college. And, of course, she refused consistently to investigate. We were asking on an issue of the UK Column when we were printing the newspaper, we were asking, was there a conspiracy of silence or a common purpose at work here? Because all the people involved, from the local authority, from the school, and the Chief Constable herself, were all involved or graduates of common purpose. So I can't imagine why she would want to cover things up. But anyway, as you mentioned, one of the other things that she said was, of course, we don't need to be investigating hate incidents anymore unless there's a crime being committed. But if it's an incident, we don't really want to be highlighting that or investigating that. Cressida Dick said this, I agree. She's made this statement. But this is all a bit strange, David, because apparently we're going to investigate the Labour Party over anti-Semitic alleged hate.
It appears not all hate is equal.
Right.
There's hate that plays to a particular agenda, a particular political agenda. We've seen this in Scotland with Nicola Sturgeon. Nicola has gone on a very camera-friendly tour of Auschwitz, and she's talking about the need to oppose hatred with reference to the Jewish community, as her supporters engage in hatred directed against political opponents of the most vitriolic sort. So there's hatred, and hatred is hatred that is politically convenient, and hatred that is not. And here we see the anti-Semitism row in the Labour Party just being stoked up again, and it's quite a strange story because Cressida Dick was approached as she came out of her LBC radio studio in Leicester Square, and she was handed a dossier, and that dossier was allegedly including evidence of anti-Semitic hate crimes, not incidents, crimes. And they've had a specialist set of officers examining this, but they're not too sure whether it's a crime or not. It looks like it might be, but they're seeking further advice from the Crown Prosecution Service, because it's not the Met Commissioner is not sure if it was a crime.
Okay, so let's see what she had to say. We've been assessing some material that was passed to me in a radio studio of all things about 2 months ago, and we are now investigating some of this material because it appears there may have been a crime committed. But didn't she just say that, if there's some question about this, we shouldn't be investigating these sort of spurious allegations, that we should be focusing on burglaries and violent crime instead?
It is very confusing, because here you see the issue being played out that no one can ever know if they're breaking the law anymore. It's unknowable, and it's subjective to an extraordinary degree, so no one can actually speak the truth and rely on logic and honesty to know that if I'm speaking truthfully and honestly, and I'm not being violent, and I'm not crossing certain clearly defined lines, I'm within the law. That seems to be impossible. And here you see that the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police isn't sure after 2 months whether a crime was there or not.
And she needs to ask somebody else.
She needs to ask yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, we continue on. Brian wanted to highlight this one, actually. This is from the local Plymouth Herald, and the headline is, "Armed Police had full train sets out for 2 major incidents in the last 48 hours. So this was Armed Police in Devon and Cornwall saying they dealt with 2 major incidents in the last 48 hours. But it was the tweet that's highlighted in this article that Brian thought was quite interesting, because, well, here we are. This is from Alliance ARV saying, 2 successful firearms operations in 2 days. We had the full train set out with Alliance ARV working with our tactical firearms team, Devon Dogs, and police drones. We can't say much more than that, but trust us, we were good." And really the question is, what is this mindset, the mentality that produces this type of bragging on Twitter over running around with guns?
And they're trying to suggest they're the Power Rangers.
And absolutely, that's exactly what. And if you look at the tweet itself, of course, the little video plays. So yes,
it's very bizarre, because you've got this juxtaposition of the childish and the violently threatening. That's not a combination that's really encouraging in our police force.
No, indeed. But sticking with police, the National Crime Agency, they are concerned about the levels of serious crime going on. Additional investment, says the government in this, and the quote says that additional investment in the multi-agency National Economic Crime Centre, which is now operational and includes officers from the National Crime Agency, HM Revenue and Customs, and City of London Police, Serious Fraud Office, Financial Conduct Authority, Crown Prosecution Service, and the Home Office. Right, so these guys are all getting together in this multi-agency National Economic Crime Centre, because there's so much economic crime going on, we've got to deal with it. Well, here's Ben Wallace, the relevant minister, and he said, "Our new strategic approach not only improves our government and law enforcement capabilities, but also ensures that working with the private sector, the public and international partners, and integrated as part of our response." So we're seeing more and more of this, David. Every day there's another announcement about various bodies working together, which are not necessarily government bodies. So from the private sector, from the NGO sector, all working together. It doesn't end there, because of course we also have the UK's industrial strategy, and they have decided that they're going to build a new quango out of this, a council which is going to keep the government accountable on how it pursues its national industrial strategy. The key point here is, does anybody actually know what the industrial strategy is? And just to give sort of a brief overview of this, the aim of the industrial strategy, they say, is to boost productivity by backing businesses to create good jobs and increase the earning power of people throughout the UK with investment in skills, industries and infrastructure. And they're going to do this by strengthening the foundations of productivity. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not even aware that they understand why productivity in the UK is doing what it's doing at the moment.
They certainly, if they understand it, they've certainly kept it to themselves. There's been no explanation as to what the problem is.
So if they can't identify the problem, how do they expect to fix it?
Well, there's some powerfully selected buzzwords in there, so that'll help.
Absolutely, but they're then going to build long-term strategic partnerships with businesses through sector deals between government and industry. These present significant opportunities to they present significant opportunities to tackle barriers to growth, boost productivity in specific sectors, further collaboration, and ensure high-quality jobs. You're impressed so far?
Actually not, no, because they haven't actually said what they're going to do.
Okay, taking on grand challenges. So this is where they tell us what they're actually going to do. They're going to take on some grand challenges, and this includes the society-changing opportunities and industries of the future, where we can build on our emerging and established strengths to become a world leader. Our first 4 grand challenges are focused on global trends to transform our future, so AI and data, the aging society, clean growth, and the future of mobility. Are you better informed now?
A little bit, but not encouraged.
Okay. So anyway, they've set up this organisation, the Industrial Strategy Council, which they're saying is an independent, non-statutory advisory group set up to develop measures of success for and assess the progress of the government's industrial strategy. So this apparently is going to hold the government to account. So I just thought we would have a quick look at who's actually on that. So we've got everybody from Andy Haldane, who's Chief Economist of the Bank of England. He's going to chair this new commission. And we've got people from industry, people from NGOs, people from academia. So we can scroll down through the list there. Well, this again is another example of the government, another press release, another day goes by, and more integration with various people from industry, from the private sector, from NGO sector, and so on.
So we see some themes there that are very common. Non-statutory. More and more of the things that government does are non-statutory. No one votes, there's no law, there's simply policy. We change the policy, we create a new body, new things start to happen, but at no point was there any parliamentary involvement, at no point was there any going to the people with the idea, at no point was there any debate. Things just happen to us. And we're told about it afterwards.
Yeah.
And then you've got the non-independent independent body. So the government will point to this independent body who will be almost certainly glowing in their praise with a certain amount of areas for improvement and some lessons to be learned. And this will be used as evidence of a check or a balance on what the government does. And of course, it's nothing of the sort. And then you've got the integration of private and third sector and government sector, which means there is actually only one. It becomes one giant organism. So it doesn't matter where you go or what you do, you're dealing with the one policy agenda. It's an agenda that wasn't set in the open, that was never discussed, that's imposed on us, but now it's in the charitable sector and it's in the private sector too.
Yes, and as they've said in the chat box here, it's rules-based. It's not based on law and it's not based on statute. It's based on rules which people make up and change as they go along.
Yes, rules and policy.
Yeah. Well, let's just see what Greg Clark had to say about this. I'm delighted that such prominent men and women from business, academia and civil society representing all corners of the country have agreed to offer their invaluable experience and insight. So that makes me feel a lot better. Look, we've been talking about this for the last few months. I'm going to say it again. This is the fusion doctrine at work. Fusion is what's going on. And as you say, it's merging, well, it's completely changing the relationship between us as individuals and the state. Because the state itself is changing to a degree that, and at a pace that we haven't seen ever, perhaps.
Well, it was similar to the 30s, in the 30s, but it was more obvious. The 20s and 30s, this was done, and it was done in an upfront way. Mussolini would say that everything within the state, everything for the state, nothing out with the state. That was the policy, and it was quite clear where the individual lay. But this is much more subtle. This suggests that we're being inclusive of all individual views, but the end result is the same.
Okay, quick advertisement then for, first of all, the emergency briefing on defence and security, which is taking place tomorrow at the conference suite in the Seven Stars Hotel in Totnes. David Ellis will be speaking, Alex Thompson, Caroline Stevens and Brian Gerrish. Do get along to that if you possibly can. If you can't get along to it, let people know that it's taking place, and let's see if we can get this room full. We will be filming the talks and the presentations, but you know, it'd be much better if people come and see it in person, actually, because this is probably the key issue that we're facing at the moment.
It is, and it's one where the UK column has led, but we're now seeing many other groups across the UK. They're listening. They're starting to become aware of what's been done to the military and what's been done to the security of the country.
Yeah. Okay, and a quick reminder of AV 9.1, which is entitled Democracy in Chains, and that's taking place at the Crowne Plaza Hotel in London on the 2nd of December, and tickets are available from alternativeview.co.uk. Dr. Graham Downing, Patrick Henningsen, Brian Gerrish, Alex Thompson and Ian R. Crane speaking at that. Now, let's talk about this. This is a young guy from Demos, and he's been talking all about Russian influence on Twitter, Russian influencers on Twitter, and they've produced a report. So what they're saying is that UK Twitter users divided over Islam may have fallen victim to Russian trolls. So here is the report, and here are some of the key points out of it. They're saying that using a Twitter-provided data set of 3,841 blocked accounts, which were said to be linked to the Internet Research Agency. Of course, this is claimed to be linked to Russia. They're saying that that there were 3 phases in Russian influence operations. We'll come on to more of the detail of this in a second. They're saying that Russian influence operations linked to the UK were most visible when discussing Islam. And they're saying that the topology of tweet activity underlines the vulnerability of social media users to disinformation. So when we're using Twitter, we're particularly vulnerable to disinformation, David. So just looking at those, they said that there are 3 phases in Russian influence operations: under the radar account building, minor Brexit vote visibility, and larger scale visibility during the London terror attacks. They're saying that Russian influence operations linked to the UK were more visible when discussing Islam, and they said that tweets discussing Islam over the period of terror attacks between March and June 2017 were retweeted 25 times more often than other messages, and that they're saying that the most widely followed and visible troll account, which is at 10GOP, shared 109 tweets related to the UK. Of these, 60% were related to Islam. The topology of tweet activity underlines the vulnerability of social media users to disinformation in the wake of tragedy or outrage. And they say that focus on the UK was a minor part of wider influence operations in the data. Of the 9 million tweets released by Twitter, 3.1 million were in English. Of those 3.1 million, Demos estimates 83,000 were in some way linked to the UK. So that's 2.7% of them were linked to the UK. And those tweets were shared 222,000 times. It is plausible, they say, that we're seeing how the UK was caught up in Russian operations against the United States. This is fantastic. I don't even know where to begin with this.
Fantastic is the word. A couple of things in defense of Twitter. The idea that the people who are on Twitter are passive receivers of information is simply not correct. I did a report for the UK column from a march in my hometown of Perth, and it was the Scottish Defence League, and they were met by Antifa, and I think all of Police Scotland were there. And it was a bizarre thing because Antifa were trying to be violent. The Scottish Defence League, to be fair, were actually not. They were reasonably well behaved. And this happened in the middle of a town which was bemused and confused by the whole scene because it was very alien. I managed to get some interviews with some of the people on the march and the counter demonstration, but they were all wearing masks. And one of them I initially misidentified as being from the wrong team. And this was immediately corrected by Twitter, that the people were actually being quite careful about the accuracy of the information out there. And because it's public, there is a self-correcting element that's often ignored. And then this idea of the Russian bot, this is even coming to Scotland. We're about, courtesy of one of our profoundly wise parliamentarians in Scotland, to be able to be an authenticated Scot on Twitter, so that I'll be able to demonstrate that I'm not in fact a Russian bot.
How would you do that?
Via some scheme and website that this MSP is setting up.
I see. Well, it is interesting. They did include some caveats in their analysis, Demos, and one of the caveats was that they are assuming that Twitter is being honest when they say that these accounts, this data that they sent them, actually originated with Russian state-operated accounts. So what they've basically said at the end of this report is that we can't prove that these are Russian state-operated accounts at all. So our whole analysis is based on an assumption, which we have no data to back up.
That's encouraging.
So there you go. Now, let's move on to education. David, and well, you wanted to highlight the passing of John Taylor Gatto.
Yes, I wanted just to highlight just how important John Taylor Gatto has been, and to briefly just record his passing on the 25th of October. He's been an inspiration to many of us. He's spoken with great vigour and great insight about what exactly is wrong with the education system, the very fundamental harm that it does, and the depth of the problem, and what can be done about it, and the joy and vigour that can be obtained from education that's based on different principles. He's written several books. The Underground History of American Education is an absolute gold mine of information on these matters. One called Dumbing Us Down. So probably about half a dozen books in all. They've been excellent. And anyone who's interested in education, anyone who's interested in how to think free, and anyone is interested in how the state is modifying society, needs to read John Taylor Gatto. He was a great man, and he'll be sadly missed.
So we have a quote here. Genius is as common as dirt. We suppress genius because we haven't yet figured out how to manage a population of educated men and women. The solution, I think, is simple and glorious. Let them manage themselves.
Yes, and this is what he put into practice. He won New York State and New York City Teacher of the Year. He was working in a very poor school in the ghetto in New York, and with very poor, disadvantaged pupils. And they were doing magnificently well. They were going to various universities, and no one could figure out how he did it. But what he was doing is he was engaging with the parents, working with them and the children, and completely subverting the system. And when he won the awards, he had to resign because the attention he got stopped him doing the subversive creative things that were actually working. So this is his resignation, or an extract from his resignation, which was published in the op-ed page of the Washington Post. It was titled, "I Quit, I Think." And he wrote, "I've come slowly to understand what it is I really teach. A curriculum of confusion, class position, arbitrary justice, vulgarity, rudeness, disrespect for privacy, indifference to quality, and utter dependency. I teach how to fit into a world I don't want to live in. I just can't do it anymore. I can't train children to wait to be told what to do. I can't train people to drop what they are doing when a bell sounds. I can't persuade children to feel some justice in their class placement where there isn't any. And I can't persuade children to believe that teachers have valuable secrets that they can acquire by becoming our disciples. That isn't true."
Okay.
Yes, final word on John Taylor Gatto. The stories that he tells of his successes with kids, or the children's successes, because it's all about giving the authority to educate themselves over to the child, are very inspirational. So please look those out.
Okay, so sticking with education then, this is from north of the border, and the headline is in the Courier, Madras College to shorten school day to embrace financial challenges.
Yeah, I just wanted to compare the genius and inspiration of John Taylor Gatto with where we're actually at in education in this country. This is a strange little piece. Madras College has decided that it's going to take 5 minutes off the start of the day, 5 minutes off the end, and extend breaks by 5 minutes to take the class day down by 20 minutes. And the excuse for this is to, quote, embrace financial challenges, a wonderful piece of management newspeak. And it's difficult to see how this strange manoeuvre is actually going to save very much money, because presumably what we're saying is we're going to cut teachers' pay pro rata because they're working 20 minutes less a day. I wonder how that will go down. And if we're not cutting pay, where's the saving? So that's strange on the surface. And it just shows the general crumbling of the system, where we keep paying more and more in tax, but the amount of education that's coming from it is getting less and less.
Okay, and this from the Scotsman then, sharp rise in the number of schools forced to share head teachers. What's going on? I thought since devolution and since the Scottish Government was managing its own budgets, that all these problems were just going to be solved, and we weren't going to hear of this kind of stuff anymore.
Well, apparently not. What we've got here is you're seeing that the job that's been asked of teachers in the institutions that they're asked to work in is so undoable, is so unattractive, that even the substantial salary hike to get someone to take on a headship is not enough to actually fill the posts anymore. So we've got 417 schools who are sharing a head teacher, most of those, because they can't fill the post. And we've got an almost identical number, 412 teachers, who have the requisite qualifications, but are choosing not to accept a head teacher position. So the teachers are voting with their feet, because it's becoming less and less about any meaningful education and more about controlling the children and bureaucracy and measurement. It becomes a less attractive job to do, and eventually people are just saying, no, it's the money's not enough, I don't want this.
And quick as a flash, we talk about a completely separate subject, education, and here we are straight back into the multi-agency scenario here. So this tweet saying, an apology for this multi-agency abuse of power is not enough. We need heads to roll. So what's this about?
Well, multi-agency, of course, means no one is responsible. And here we see that this situation, which was horrendous, because a woman decided to take the children out of school and home educate, and put in an application to do that. 2 weeks after this, there was an incident in the playground where a playground supervisor, member of staff, was involved in a physical alteration with one of her children, which she felt was inappropriate, and she reported it to the police. She then took her children out of the school, awaiting the decision on permission to home educate. The school then contacted the police. They got the police to report the family to the children's reporter, which is a judicial process, for non-attendance at school on a care and protection basis, even though they knew exactly why the children weren't attending school and had an application for home education to be considered. They used this to delay the home education application for 6 months without any justification, and eventually the application to have this reviewed was thrown out by the children's reporter as being without foundation. And they've been asked to apologise, but no one's losing their job. No one's actually being responsible for the multi-agency bullying and abuse that happened here.
Okay, let's move on to the EU. Well, the headline here is EU border lie detector system criticised as pseudoscience. We're going to, as we pass through EU borders, have to take a lie detector test. Is that what's going on?
Well, it's better than that. It's essentially a robot lie detector test. It's not. We're not.
It's a lie detector test over Skype.
Pretty much. Right. You see, what you'll get is you'll get asked questions by a virtual interrogator, and the virtual interrogator, in your case, would speak with a charming Northern Irish accent and be male, because you'll identify with your virtual interrogator, all the better. But they will be monitoring your responses for micro expressions that says that you're lying, Mike, and they will detect your dishonesty automatically and put you in for further examination thereafter. So by this means, we're going to detect illegal immigrants.
And so who's saying it's pseudoscience then?
Well, this comes from a Bureau Verschuuri, who's a senior lecturer in forensic psychology at University of Amsterdam. He's saying that the non-verbal signals really don't say anything about whether someone is lying or not. He said it's the embodiment of everything that can go wrong with lie detection, and there's no scientific foundation for the methods that are going to be used. And he says that he predicts that once the systems are in use, they'll stay in use, but the public will only hear about the successes and not about the stories of all those who have been wrongly stopped based on false positives.
Okay, good stuff. Well, look, obviously the Khashoggi murder, if that's what it is, because we still don't have a body, and I think everybody accepts that he has been murdered, but, you know, we're questioning where is the evidence for this, but you know, we don't need to worry about it because, well, the Foreign and Commonwealth Office has decided to push through a little video, and media freedom is under threat, and journalists are under attack, they say. With only 13% of the world's population in a country with a free press. So far this year, at least 71 journalists and media workers have been killed and 321 journalists detained. So just for doing their job, they're saying 9 times out of 10 these crimes go unpunished. So the Foreign and Commonwealth Office says that it has to stop. Journalists play a vital role in holding the powerful to account, and people must be able to challenge their governments and make informed decisions. Independent media is essential, they say, for countering disinformation, and the UK is committed to media freedom and protection of journalists. And I have to say, this makes me feel so much better, David.
Well, I did, but there's an unfortunate bit that wasn't on that slide. There should be a little asterisk at the end, and down at the bottom of the screen it should say asterisk terms and conditions apply. Because the terms and conditions which apply are, of course, this is for foreigners. This does not apply in the UK.
Yes.
The Tommy Robinson case, whatever else it was certainly assault on the free press and on people speaking truth to power and holding power to account. And we know of many other cases too. And of course, all foreign governments are not equal, because there are foreign governments where we will criticise their handling of the press, and there's foreign governments where that criticism shall be either absent or extremely muted.
Well, of course, what's going on in this country is that the major freedom of the press, threat to the so-called freedom of the press is the commercial aspect of the business, the fact that press and media in this country are, from a commercial point of view, tanking. And the government very concerned about that. So not only are we not going to put journalists who are holding truth to power, are they? I don't know about that. We're not going to put them in prison in this country. But we were even holding a review called the Cairncross Review to make sure that they're funded properly in the future. So the government will take a hand in making sure that we have a free press and media in this country in the future. That must make you feel extremely safe and secure.
Well, on the basis that government would never use its power and financial clout to stifle... No, they do that all the time. Oh, no, we might have a problem here.
Yes. Okay, well, look, we will leave it there for today. A short news programme today. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for coming down, David.
It's been a real pleasure.
And we will be back as usual at 1 p.m. on Monday, and we will see you then. Bye-bye.